right at this very moment, a profound transformation is unfolding within you, one that you likely haven't found the exact words to describe just yet. You can sense it hovering right at the periphery of your consciousness. It is a peculiar but absolute certainty that an internal shift is taking place, rendering the version of yourself from merely half a year ago almost entirely unrecognizable to who you are today. Furthermore, the external world, which historically possessed the ability to drag your spirit downward into its chaotic noise, its deeply rooted fears, and its perpetual low vibrational static, is miraculously losing its hold over you. Please understand that your arrival at this specific message was absolutely not a coincidence. You did not simply wander into this space because an automated algorithm arbitrarily plucked you from an ocean of millions of viewers. The mechanics behind your presence here are infinitely more intentional and precise. Your personal energy field actively recognized a vibrational match. Your unique frequency, the distinct, unrepeatable energetic signature of your own consciousness, has officially crossed a new threshold. And this exact message was patiently waiting for you right on the other side of that doorway. Take a deep breath and pause for a second. Acknowledge the intense journey you have been enduring. It has been a profound, occasionally confusing, and frequently draining evolution into a state of being that defies conventional labels. A major reason this journey feels incredibly lonely is that the individuals in your immediate circle, those who remain completely submerged in the everyday chaos, are incapable of perceiving this internal metamorphosis. From their external perspective, they simply observe a person who has grown increasingly silent. They see someone whose patience for trivial or toxic discussions has evaporated, someone who now recoils from settings and atmospheres that once felt entirely acceptable. They lack the vocabulary to define what they are witnessing in you. However, you possess that understanding. You have been slowly constructing this internal lexicon, gathering insights step by step, message by message. Today, a critical new piece of knowledge is being integrated into your awareness. Today, you are given the absolute confirmation that this intense phase you are navigating is in no way a mental breakdown. It is not mere hypersensitivity. You are not turning fragile, behaving strangely, or losing your grip on reality. It is the magnificent activation of your quantum halo. I need to reiterate that statement, as it must deeply resonate within your core before we proceed any further. Everything you have been enduring recently, the bone-deep fatigue, the sharp spikes in spiritual awareness, the sudden inability to stomach the energies you previously accepted, and that bizarre sensation of being systematically rewired from your deepest core outward, all of it serves a singular purpose. It is the literal restructuring of your personal energy field. Your quantum halo is upgrading itself to function on a completely superior, fundamentally elevated plane of existence. And this brings us to a reality-altering truth. The moment this energetic reorganization is finalized, the moment your halo is fully ignited and firmly anchors into its upgraded frequency, you become genuinely untouchable. I am not speaking of being untouchable through an ego-driven lens of arrogance or forced solitude. I mean this in the most literal, scientifically precise energetic context imaginable. Any entity, thought, or situation vibrating at a density lower than your newly established baseline simply loses the capacity to interact with you. It can no longer latch onto your spirit. It cannot siphon your vitality or distort your pure energetic broadcast. Down to the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics, you are evolving into a sovereign entity. Low vibrational chaos will simply cascade off your auric field, much like water effortlessly slipping off a beam of pure light. Unveiling this truth is the exact purpose of this communication. It is the precise reason your energetic signature was identified. But before we delve deeper into the technical mechanics of this shift, I want to guide your imagination. Picture yourself standing completely alone in a massive, sprawling meadow under the cover of night. The celestial canopy stretching above you is boundless, crystal clear, and utterly overflowing with brilliant starlight. In your hands, you are grasping an antique radio receiver, the classic variety equipped with a tactile, analog dial that requires slow, deliberate tuning to lock onto a broadcast. As you stand grounded in that tranquil meadow, the device emanates a harsh static. It is a relentless, low-grade buzzing of atmospheric interference, a chaotic blend of warring frequencies. It is a cacophony devoid of any singular origin, yet it feels as though it is violently pressing in on you from all directions simultaneously. You begin to rotate the dial with extreme caution and patience. For an extended period, your efforts yield nothing but additional static and relentless auditory clutter. You catch fleeting snippets of signals that tantalizingly threaten to form a coherent message, only to immediately shatter back into a messy void of dissonance. Yet, you persist in turning the dial. Then, as the needle reaches one highly specific, microscopic point on the spectrum, an absolute miracle occurs. The aggressive static vanishes into thin air. In its place, the speaker radiates a transmission of such profound clarity, purity, and undeniable coherence that it washes over you like the sweetest silence after enduring a lifetime imprisoned in an echo chamber of noise. Here is the secret. That immaculate signal existed all along. It had been continuously broadcasting into the ether without pause. The solitary variable that shifted was the specific frequency your device was calibrated to receive. This exact gateway of tuning is precisely what is manifesting in your physical and spiritual reality right now. This is the exact evolutionary process you have been tirelessly wading through. Your quantum halo, your deeply personal, invisible energy field acts as that very radio receiver. For the vast majority of your existence on this planet, it was left wide open, calibrated to a broad frequency spectrum that absorbed absolutely everything. It vacuumed up ambient fear, internalized insecurities, the unchecked chaos of surrounding individuals, and the heavy, collective anxiety that rolls across human society much like dark storm clouds. You absorbed all of this heavy debris simply because your internal antenna was tuned to an inclusive range that permitted it all to enter. But today, a profound force is permanently altering that calibration. An unseen hand is shifting your internal dial. As this realignment occurs, the worldly static is rapidly fading into obscurity. What remains in its wake is a broadcast so pristine and so undeniably authentic to your soul that absolutely nothing originating from your former, lower frequency existence possesses the power to reach you ever again. The mechanics of resonance. Let us be absolutely clear. We are not speaking in poetic metaphors here. We are discussing literal, structural mechanics. The principles of quantum field theory reveal a profound truth, one that the majority of individuals hear and instantly mistranslate back into the outdated paradigms of the old world. Science dictates that subatomic particles, the foundational building blocks of our entire physical universe, possess no rigid, predefined characteristics until the moment they are actively observed or interact with a surrounding energy field. They require a resonant force to snap into definition. Translated beyond the dry confines of a physics lecture, this implies that reality itself is not some solid, unyielding labyrinth you are simply navigating through. Instead, your lived reality is an ongoing phenomenon of resonance. It is a fluid medium that only hardens into specific, tangible events through the collision and interaction of energetic frequencies. Your very consciousness acts as a distinct frequency. Your personal auric field operates as a continuous broadcast. Consequently, the physical world that materializes around you, the specific experiences that hunt you down, the individuals who cross your path, and the life events that permanently staple themselves to your timeline, all of it boils down to an exact vibrational match. It is fundamentally an event of resonance, the illusion of performance. Yet, there is a massive misconception about this cosmic law that is rarely addressed. When most people stumble upon this concept, they instantly commodify it into a spiritual checklist. They operate under the delusion that they must relentlessly think positive thoughts, recite specific affirmations, or artificially manufacture a high vibe state to magnetize good outcomes. They take the most profound revelation in quantum physics and reduce it to a theatrical performance. But let me tell you, performing is the polar opposite of vibrating. Performance is merely sheer effort, masking itself as genuine energy. In fact, intense, grinding effort, the anxiety-ridden struggle to contort yourself into a persona you are not actually plummets your vibrational baseline. This is because such forced effort stems from a deeply ingrained belief that you are fundamentally flawed or lacking. It is rooted in the assumption that you must artificially fabricate qualities you supposedly do not possess naturally. Operating from a state of lack is arguably one of the most potent, dense, low-frequency conditions in human existence. The actual reality of the situation is infinitely less complicated and far more revolutionary than any superficial to-do list. The grand secret is that your true frequency is never something you construct from scratch. Rather, it is a treasure you excavate. It naturally rises to the surface the moment you cease piling on the dense static of societal fear, performative actions, and the restrictive labels others have forced upon you over the signal that was broadcasting all along. Revealing the halo. Your quantum halo does not require assembly. It simply demands liberation. This intense journey of revelation, the very path you have already embarked upon, is the methodical process of shedding that static. You are shedding it layer by agonizing layer, destructive habit by destructive habit, draining dynamic by draining dynamic, and limiting belief by limiting belief. As you let go of this heavy interference, what blossoms from beneath is a pure essence completely impervious to the lower dimensional world that originally manufactured that static. Allow that profound realization to anchor deeply within your mind. If this transmission is currently aligning with your personal energy field, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, ensuring you remain anchored in this frequency as our future messages continue to unfold. You have already caught glimpses of this, haven't you? There have undoubtedly been specific instances, perhaps fleeting seconds that you hastily brushed off as mere coincidence or wishful thinking, where you remained absolutely unbothered by a catalyst that historically would have shattered your peace. Consider a moment when someone delivered a remark that, a mere 12 months ago, would have completely devastated your spirit. Yet this time you felt the words land and simply watched them effortlessly glide off your armor. Or perhaps a chaotic scenario erupted that normally would have triggered a suffocating tornado of panic, but instead, you discovered a bizarre, unshakable stillness anchored in your core. It was a profound, almost eerie tranquility that defied logical explanation. Think of an individual who formerly wielded the power to suck your energetic reserves completely dry. When they recently entered your vicinity, you likely observed that the typical exhaustion never materialized. You noticed this shift. You may have even analyzed it, questioning if you were morphing into an apathetic or coldly detached person. Let me reassure you, that was neither apathy nor coldness. That phenomenon was your halo successfully holding its ground. It was the premier, undeniable signature that you are ascending into an untouchable state, the science of coherence. Let us now dive even deeper into the literal anatomy of this halo, moving into a territory that the vast majority of spiritual dialogues fail to penetrate. The bulk of discussions surrounding energy fields linger superficially on the concepts of colorful auras and vague energetic moods. While those elements hold their own validity, the quantum halo functions on a drastically more sophisticated and potent level than the basic, generalized idea of an aura. In precise terms, the quantum halo is the highly coherent electromagnetic force field actively generated by the synergy of your physical heart and your central nervous system. When these two vital systems harmonize, operating in what scientific literature refers to as heart-brain coherence, the magic truly begins. This is not some fluffy, abstract spiritual poetry. Organizations such as the Heart Math Institute have dedicated decades of rigorous empirical research to actively measuring and mapping out this exact biological field. Physically speaking, your heart pumps out an electromagnetic aura that radiates several feet outward from your physical vessel in a 360-degree sphere. When your cognitive brain and your beating heart achieve ultimate coherence, pulsing and oscillating at the exact same rhythmic frequency, this invisible perimeter becomes quantifiably more robust. It becomes measurably more structured and significantly more dominant in its capacity to mold and influence the external fields surrounding it. And it is precisely at this intersection where the mind-bending laws of quantum mechanics step onto the stage in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. Within the fascinating realm of quantum physics, there is a fundamental principle known as quantum coherence. This term describes a profound state wherein individual particles or entire complex systems become deeply synchronized, functioning in a perfectly correlated relationship with one another. When a system successfully enters a state of quantum coherence, it ceases to operate as a random assortment of fragmented pieces. Instead, it unifies into a singular, cohesive powerhouse. In the most literal and measurable sense, this unified whole becomes exponentially more robust, stable, and formidable than the mere sum of its isolated parts. Furthermore, it develops an extraordinary, almost impenetrable shield against chaotic, external frequencies. In the language of quantum mechanics, coherent systems are those that fiercely maintain their internal architecture and integrity, even when they are bombarded by what physicists term decoherence, which is essentially the disruptive, destructive influence of environmental noise. Are you beginning to see the profound implications of what I am pointing toward? When your personal quantum halo achieves this state of coherence, when your analytical mind, your beating heart, and your energetic field are all vibrating and oscillating together as one synchronized system, you undergo a transformation. At a fundamental, subatomic level, you build an active immunity to external decoherence. You become highly resistant to outside energetic interference. To use the most scientifically accurate terminology available to us, you become literally untouchable by any frequency that fails to harmonize with your own coherent state. Please understand, this is not mere wishful thinking. This is not psychological escapism or spiritual bypassing. This is the literal, observable physics of what occurs when a highly organized, coherent energy field collides with an unorganized, incoherent one. The coherent field effortlessly holds its shape and structure. The chaotic frequency simply bounces off. It cannot pierce your energetic armor, because your coherent field contains absolutely nothing that matches or invites that chaos inside. Activating your field. Your halo is, by definition, a coherence field, and it is actively powering up right at this very moment. Let us pause for a second. This is a visceral, energetic reality, not just a poetic symbol. I invite you to participate in a brief, grounding exercise. Gently place one of your hands directly over the center of your chest, resting it upon your heart. Do not treat this as a hollow physical gesture. Approach it as a profound internal connection. Truly feel the radiating warmth of your own palm pressing against your physical body. Now, draw in a slow, deliberate breath, pulling the air down much deeper than your typical, everyday breathing. As you slowly release that air, do not merely exhale oxygen. I want you to intentionally expel the very last thing that attempted to drag your frequency down. Release that frustrating conversation that lingeringly annoyed you. Exhale that alarming news headline that tightly coiled your nervous system. Let go of that repetitive, anxious thought that has been spinning in your mind without any resolution. By exhaling these burdens, you are not violently suppressing them or pretending they do not exist. Rather, you are making a conscious, empowered choice in this exact second to stop feeding them your precious coherence. The resonance of untouchability. Now, draw in another deep, revitalizing breath. This time, as your lungs fill with air, I want you to actively reach inward and grasp the sensation of those specific moments we discussed earlier. Recall those instances where a toxic trigger that should have emotionally derailed you completely failed to do so. Grasp onto the memory of that bizarre, beautiful, quiet untouchability, even if those flashes of peace were incredibly brief. And even if they feel like distant memories right now, summon the feeling of them. Why? Because that sensation is not merely a memory locked in the past. It is a living, breathing frequency, and you have just successfully reactivated it. Pay close attention to the physiological shifts happening inside your vessel right now. That subtle warmth, that grounding sensation, that gentle expansion blossoming within your chest cavity that is absolutely not a product of your imagination. That is your tangible halo physically reacting to the introduction of coherence. It is your energetic field automatically resorting and organizing itself to match the elevated frequency you just deliberately invoked. This simple exercise beautifully illustrates a monumental principle. You absolutely do not need your external environment to be flawless before your halo can power up. You do not have to wait for the chaotic world to suddenly find peace. You do not need the difficult, draining individuals in your life to magically transform their behavior, nor do you need all of your lingering uncertainties to be perfectly resolved. The only requirement is that you actively choose to reach for inner coherence right smack in the middle of the chaos. Because a state of coherence that is deliberately cultivated amidst a storm is infinitely more robust and powerful than a coherence that only emerges when life is perfectly easy. The energetic halo that ignites during a fierce storm is the exact halo that solidifies into something genuinely untouchable. The observer effect in your reality. We have now arrived at a critical turning point in our understanding. Within the framework of quantum physics, there is a famous concept known as the observer effect. You have likely encountered this term before. It is the revolutionary idea that the mere act of observing a phenomenon fundamentally alters the behavior of what is being watched, that subatomic particles literally change their behavior when they are being measured compared to when they are left unobserved. The majority of society dismisses this as a quirky scientific anomaly, a strange behavior isolated to microscopic laboratories that has zero relevance to their daily existence. But here is the ultimate truth that reshapes everything. The observer effect is not a trivial scientific quirk. It is the foundational, driving mechanism of human consciousness operating within a quantum universe. Furthermore, this law extends far beyond subatomic particles trapped in a sterile lab. It directly governs your everyday life. It dictates the boundaries of your personal energy field. It actively sculpts the physical reality that hardens and crystallizes around you every single day. When you persistently view your life through a lens of fear, when you operate from a mindset of constant lack, and when you inherently believe that you are a helpless victim at the mercy of uncontrollable external forces, you are taking on the role of an observer whose dominant frequency is one of collapse, restriction, and contraction. And because the quantum field is an impartial mirror that solely responds to the observer's broadcasted frequency, it obediently reorganizes your physical reality to perfectly match that internal collapse. It systematically hunts down the external evidence needed to validate your internal fear. It continuously presents circumstances that perfectly align with your contracted state. This happens not because a vindictive universe is trying to punish you, but simply because this is the flawless, unemotional mechanics of energetic resonance at play. The quantum matrix is perpetually reacting to the one who is watching it. It tirelessly molds its fundamental architecture to match the exact vibrational output of the observer. However, the moment your quantum halo ignites and you begin to function from a foundation of pure coherence, a monumental shift alters the very physics of this equation. You cease to view the world through the distorted, contracted lens of fear. Instead, you become an observer anchored within a stabilized, high-dimensional energy field, one that generates its own undeniable gravitational pull. Consequently, the quantum fabric interacts with you in a vastly different manner. It begins to arrange physical reality around this newfound coherence, aligning external circumstances with boundless potential and the elevated broadcast of your activated halo. In the most literal, quantum mechanical definition, you transform into an entirely different category of observer. And a transformed observer forces reality to collapse into an entirely different, highly elevated human experience. This is precisely where the vast majority of seekers stumble. They fall into the delusion that the ultimate objective is absolute perfection, that they must completely eradicate all fearful thoughts and sustain a flawless, uninterrupted state of high vibes forever. When they inevitably fail to uphold this completely unnatural and impossible benchmark, they mistakenly deduce that the entire spiritual framework is a lie, or that they are simply unevolved and doing it all wrong. The heavy, toxic shame generated by this false conclusion violently plummets their energetic frequency far below the baseline of their original fear. This vicious cycle is the exact trap that keeps individuals endlessly looping at the same stagnant level of consciousness for years, if not decades. Let me be unequivocally clear. The endgame is never about executing perfect observation. The true objective is the ignition and stabilization of your halo field. Why? Because the most magnificent trait of a coherent energy field is its inherent ability to self-correct. When your halo is fully powered up and has achieved a robust threshold of coherence, it does not demand flawless behavior from you. It merely requires you to remain anchored. There is a monumental distinction here. Perfection is merely a draining, theatrical performance, whereas anchoring is a deeply rooted state of being. When you are firmly tethered to your coherent core, the lower frequency thoughts and dense emotional experiences that are an unavoidable part of the human journey will not shatter your foundation. They do not destabilize your energetic matrix. Instead, these energies simply flow through it. Your field processes the density and then automatically recalibrates back to its baseline of coherence, much like a struck tuning fork inevitably returns to its pure, natural resonance the moment the external interference fades away. This is the absolute essence of what it means to be truly untouchable. It does not imply that you live in a sterile vacuum where nothing ever impacts you. It does not mean you are magically elevated above the gritty realities of the human condition. It means that whatever heavy energy lands on you simply refuses to stick. The external chaos cannot colonize your spiritual territory. Whatever darkness enters your sphere merely passes straight through to the other side, leaving the core frequency of your being fundamentally uncorrupted. The chaotic storms of life will roll in, and they will roll out, but you will remain standing unshaken, profoundly coherent, and continuously radiating a signal that is unmistakably, irreducibly your own. Allow me to transport your imagination to another place to illustrate this. There is an ancient parable not tethered to any one specific religion, but echoing the universal archetypes that flow beneath all wisdom traditions. It speaks of a luminous entity of extraordinary light, known in this particular telling as Seraphel, who resided on the outskirts of a sprawling metropolis. This city was suffocating under the weight of incessant noise, bitter conflict, and a very specific flavor of darkness. This darkness was not born of inherent evil, but of profound unconsciousness generated by citizens so hopelessly entangled in their own terrors that they had entirely forgotten their divine origins. Every single day, Seraphel would deliberately stroll through the heart of this city. They navigated the bustling markets, the narrow, shadowy alleys, and the densely packed squares where anxious individuals congregated to exchange their personal worries as though they were a tangible currency. And the inhabitants of this city quickly registered something deeply peculiar about Seraphel. The deafening cacophony of their world never seemed to graze this being. The volatile disputes that constantly erupted among the merchants could not suck Seraphel into their vortex. The palpable panic that swept through the masses like a viral contagion simply failed to infect them. The heavy, oppressive density that crushed everyone else appeared to effortlessly part around Seraphel, much like rushing river water seamlessly glides around a smooth, ancient stone. Naturally, the townspeople, governed by their limited mortal perspectives, concocted a multitude of theories to explain this phenomenon. Some whispered that Seraphel was simply callous and unfeeling, completely severed from the harsh realities that ordinary folk were forced to endure. Others reasoned that they were just incredibly privileged, shielded by some bizarre stroke of luck from the mundane suffering of the masses. Cynics even claimed that Seraphel was merely putting on an elaborate act, faking a superficial serenity, and eagerly waited for the day the mask would shatter, revealing a soul just as terrified and lost as the rest of them. However, there was one solitary observer in that bustling city, an elderly woman named Mira. who quietly peddled loaves of bread at the very fringes of the grand market. Mira had silently studied Seraphel for many years, and her seasoned eyes perceived a completely different reality. She recognized that Seraphel absolutely did feel the agonizing pulse of the city. She could plainly witness it in the depths of their eyes whenever they traversed the darkest, most difficult corners of the town. What she saw was not apathy. It was profound recognition. It was a silent, compassionate, witnessing a completely open and fiercely present awareness of the immense suffering that surrounded them. It wasn't that Seraphel was somehow blind or numb to the agonizing struggles of the populace. They were intimately, acutely aware of the surrounding pain. The critical distinction was that this pain was never granted permission to establish residency within their own spirit. It could not secure a foothold in their luminous energy field. Eventually, Mira's curiosity overcame her, and she inquired, "How is it possible that you can constantly navigate through all of this misery and remain so completely unchanged by it?" Seraphel gently settled beside the old woman and delivered a response that Mira would fiercely guard in her heart until her dying day. They softly explained, "I am not actively shielded or hidden away from this city. I am not functioning in isolation from it. The difference is that I am profoundly certain of exactly what I am, and the essence of what I am is entirely incapable of being overridden or replaced by the darkness I happen to encounter. This city broadcasts at one specific frequency, and I simply broadcast at a completely different one. We are fully capable of occupying the exact same physical space without one energy bleeding into or destroying the other. In the grand narrative of your own life, you currently embody the roles of both Seraphel and Mira simultaneously. There is a part of your psyche that has been observing your own evolution from an external vantage point, marveling at how certain individuals manage to elegantly glide through the suffocating chaos of the modern world without being devoured by it. Yet, another profound aspect of your soul already is that elevated being the one who intrinsically knows exactly what they are made of. This powerful activation occurring right now is the beautiful, inevitable collision where these two fragmented parts finally recognize and merge with one another. This is the ultimate, foundational principle that will permanently rewrite your physical reality. You do not achieve protection from the world by physically running away or detaching from it. True, impenetrable protection is born solely from an absolute, cellular-level knowing of what your energy field truly is, and what you fundamentally are is a powerhouse of coherent frequency. You are a highly specific, totally irreplaceable, magnificent vibrational signal that the cosmos itself is actively broadcasting, utilizing your unique consciousness as the very instrument of transmission. The moment you grasp this truth not merely as a fragile belief you must exhaustively try to uphold, but as an undeniable, physically felt, embodied fact of your existence, the absolute chaos of the surrounding world transforms. It becomes something you can look directly in the eye, fully acknowledging its presence, without ever being swallowed by it. You have finally mastered the critical boundary between neutrally witnessing a dense frequency and disastrously absorbing it, between being aware of a chaotic vibration and allowing it to colonize your spirit. Let's pause the transmission for a moment. Please leave a comment down below. Have you experienced a recent scenario where an event that historically would have severely triggered or depressed you completely failed to do so? Reflect on a specific situation, a toxic individual, or a difficult conversation where you physically felt your halo successfully holding its perimeter. Please share your story in the comment section, because your lived experience acts as a powerful energetic beacon. Your testimony actively fortifies the strength of this collective field for every single soul who discovers this message after you. Now, we must delve deeper into the mechanical reasons as to why your halo is sparking into activation at this specific juncture in time. Because, make no mistake, this timing is absolutely not a coincidence. This is not happening simply because you have been diligent with your meditation practices or reciting positive affirmations, although those efforts are undeniably valuable. There is a massive, macro-level phenomenon occurring right now that is actively turbocharging this activation process for individuals like yourself. people whose personal energy fields have successfully crested a critical frequency threshold. It is paramount that you comprehend the magnitude of this event. Our entire planet is currently undergoing a massive frequency shift. And I must emphasize, this is not some vague, woo-woo metaphysical theory. This is a quantifiable, scientifically observable physical reality. Consider the Schumann resonance, the foundational electromagnetic pulse of the Earth's ionospheric cavity. For the vast majority of human history, this resonance has remained incredibly stable and predictable. However, in recent years, it has begun demonstrating massive spikes, wild fluctuations, and unprecedented anomalies. Mainstream scientists analyzing this data label it as a period of heightened electromagnetic activity. But translated into the realm of consciousness, this signifies that the fundamental energy field of the Earth itself is undergoing a radical, structural reorganization. When massive energy fields reorganize, they trigger what physicists refer to as perturbations, intense ripples or disruptions in the surrounding vibrational environment. These energetic shock waves essentially force all neighboring systems to make a brutal choice. They must either rapidly adapt to the new frequency or completely destabilize and collapse. This precise mechanic is exactly why the global landscape feels so incredibly unhinged and chaotic right now. It is the reason why time itself feels as though it is accelerating at a breakneck pace. This is why the archaic, legacy structures of our society, the outdated paradigms of power, our old methods of relating to one another, and the fractured ways we have historically organized our collective existence are violently fracturing and exposing their fatal flaws so publicly. These legacy systems are being forcefully perturbed by a planetary field that is fundamentally upgrading its core resonance. Systems that were constructed upon dense, low-vibrational foundations built on the pillars of fear, division, and the toxic illusion that scarcity is the default state of existence are fundamentally incapable of adapting to this higher frequency shockwave. Their only possible trajectory is total destabilization and collapse. But here is the most magnificent aspect of this entire process. Energy fields that are already intentionally aligned with higher frequencies, fields like yours, which possess the internal coherence necessary to respond to these massive perturbations by adapting rather than shattering, are not being destroyed by this planetary upgrade. On the contrary, they are being exponentially accelerated by it. They are being massively amplified. The exact same energetic tsunami that is ruthlessly demolishing the low-frequency architecture of the old world is simultaneously lifting and empowering the high-frequency structures. The identical cosmic force that is ripping open the cracks in the dying paradigm is the very force activating the halos of those who are truly prepared for the shift. And you are ready. This precise state of readiness is the exact reason this transmission successfully zeroed in on your coordinates. However, there is a stark, unspoken reality regarding this evolutionary leap that most spiritual dialogues conveniently gloss over. The activation sequence is rarely a comfortable or peaceful ride. Actually, the most turbulent stage of igniting your halo frequently masquerades as total collapse. From your internal vantage point, it mimics a catastrophic breakdown. You might feel hypersensitive, as if you have been utterly stripped of your energetic armor. The deafening roar of the outside world might seem exponentially louder and more abrasive than ever before, leaving your central nervous system frayed and overwhelmed. Ironically, you may feel far more easily triggered and deeply affected by your environment, rather than detached from it. During this grueling phase, the vast majority of individuals jump to the agonizing conclusion that they are fundamentally broken. They falsely assume they are regressing, sliding backward into old traps, and that all their inner work has completely failed. But let me illuminate the actual physics of what is transpiring behind the scenes. Whenever an energetic matrix upgrades to a superior state of coherence, It is absolutely mandatory that it violently purges the dense frameworks that previously anchored it to the lower dimensions. We are talking about deeply ingrained limiting beliefs, toxic emotional loops, and heavy vibrational debris that you unconsciously soaked up from your surroundings over years and decades. These dense paradigms do not simply vanish into thin air peacefully. They scream on their way out. They erupt with fierce intensity, rising to the very surface of your consciousness, because they demand to be fully witnessed, felt, and acknowledged before they can finally evaporate into the ether. While they are surfacing, the sheer weight of them can feel paralyzing, mimicking the sensation of absolute failure. But hear me clearly. This chaos is absolutely not a symptom of defeat. It is the undeniable proof of your activation. Consider this highly practical analogy. Imagine deciding to deep clean a room that has been accumulating junk for years. The zenith of the mess isn't right before you start, when the clutter is quietly tucked away in familiar, predictable piles. The absolute peak of the chaos happens right in the middle of the project, when you have dragged every single hidden item out of the closets, from under the bed, and dumped them right into the center of the floor. In that specific snapshot of time, the room appears drastically worse than when you began. You feel like you've created a disaster, but you haven't. You have merely dragged the shadows into the glaring light. You have made the invisible visible, bringing the hidden disorder out into the open so it can finally be categorized, processed, and thrown away. And once you cross the finish line of that grueling process, the resulting space isn't just a bit neater. It has been radically transformed. It possesses an entirely new architecture, a pristine order, and a completely elevated vibration. This exact dynamic is what your internal halo activation feels like during its intense purging cycle. The sacred architecture of your energetic field is undergoing a massive deep clean. Every piece of dense debris hidden in the dark recesses the inherited scripts of inadequacy, the fossilized phobias, the residual energetic sludge left behind by toxic environments, and people who trespassed on your aura without consent is being violently thrust into the spotlight. And yes, the unearthing process is overwhelmingly intense, but it is never a warning that something has gone wrong. It is the ultimate confirmation that everything is finally, permanently aligning. Let me equip you with a tangible tool to navigate this storm, because grasping this concept intellectually is vastly different from elegantly surviving it in your physical body. Let's pause for a moment. This is a literal energetic protocol, not a poetic metaphor. The next time you are hit by that suffocating wave of overwhelm, when the static of the world feels unbearably loud and intrusive, do not try to repress it. Stop trying to muscle your way through it or rationally debate with your anxiety. Instead, I want you to audibly voice the truth. Speak these words aloud. This is my energetic field actively purging everything that no longer aligns with my frequency. Declare it with the unwavering authority of absolute fact, not as a desperate plea or a fragile wish, but as a conscious acknowledgement of a mechanical process currently in motion. Follow this declaration with 3 deliberate rhythmic breaths. With every deep inhalation, pull in the profound realization that this discomfort is the hallmark of ascension, not a sign of retreat. With every slow exhalation, consciously grant these expiring, heavy patterns full permission to leave your vessel. You aren't wrestling with the darkness, nor are you desperately clinging to it. You are simply holding the exit door wide open and stating, "Your time here is done. I intimately know what I am, and my true essence has outgrown the need for you." Pay close attention to the somatic shifts occurring within your physical frame when you execute this. Observe the stark contrast between rigidly bracing against the intensity versus fluidly riding the wave of release. Witness how the entire texture of the ordeal transforms the second you accurately identify its true nature. That very pivot, that crucial step from blind resistance to empowered recognition, is the literal sensation of your halo locking its perimeter. It is the force of your coherence reigning supreme, even amidst the turbulent debris of the purge. Can you physically sense that profound shift? Now, we must turn our attention to the individuals occupying your daily reality. Because this specific dimension of the activation journey is undoubtedly the most treacherous, the most baffling, and the most critical to navigate with absolute clarity. As your halo roars to life, and your personal field dramatically reorganizes around a much higher frequency, the interpersonal connections tethering you to this world will inevitably react. And I assure you, not all of these reactions will be comfortable or peaceful. As your internal frequency stabilizes, the individuals in your immediate orbit will instinctively react to the massive shift in your auric field. A certain fraction of them will find themselves magnetically pulled into your sphere. They will actively seek out your company, craving your presence, without consciously understanding the mechanics behind it. Around you, their nervous systems will soothe. They will suddenly feel grounded, tranquil, and infused with an inexplicable sense of hope. They might even explicitly mention that you possess a new, radiant quality, an intangible upgrade they can't quite put into words. These are the beautiful souls whose personal energetic signatures are naturally harmonizing with your expanding halo. These specific connections are being actively nourished and fortified by your ascension. Conversely, there will be a completely different contingent of people who react in the exact opposite manner. Certain individuals will suddenly exhibit profound discomfort when sharing your physical space, and their unease will have absolutely nothing to do with any words you have spoken or actions you have taken. You will watch them become inexplicably agitated, emotionally withdrawn, or hypercritical, suddenly zeroing in on perceived flaws they previously ignored. They will inevitably point fingers, accusing you of transforming, of growing cold, or of no longer being the familiar version of yourself they once relied upon. And the unvarnished reality is, they are entirely correct. You are evolving. You are fundamentally different. You have unequivocally outgrown the mold they used to know. However, it is vital that you do not internalize their agitation as proof that your spiritual progression is a mistake. Their friction is simply the empirical evidence that your upgraded broadcast no longer matches the dense frequency they are accustomed to emitting. In the strict realm of physics, whenever a highly chaotic, incoherent vibration is forced into close proximity with a masterful, coherent energy field, it triggers a phenomenon known as dissonance. Dissonance is inherently painful. To alleviate this visceral discomfort, the chaotic frequency will instinctively attempt to drag the coherent field back down into the density where it feels safe. This exact dynamic is your ultimate initiation. This is the precise testing ground where your halo will either buckle under pressure or solidify into unbreakable armor. You must clearly comprehend the mechanics of this interaction so you do not fall victim to guilt. When a friend or family member becomes emotionally unmoored by your activation, it is absolutely not because you have morphed into an arrogant, elitist, or spiritually apathetic person. It is strictly because the vibrational chasm between your baseline and theirs has expanded to such a degree that the energetic bridge they previously used to siphon your energy has collapsed. To them, this energetic severance genuinely feels like an agonizing loss. It translates to their ego as profound rejection. It is completely appropriate to extend deep, authentic compassion for the pain they are experiencing. But true empathy absolutely does not mandate that you self-sabotage and plummet your frequency to bridge that gap. You possess the capacity to hold a space of unconditional love for their suffering without absorbing a single drop of their dense vibration. You can profoundly love a person without matching their chaotic state. Here is the blunt, uncompromising reality that most spiritual practitioners desperately need to internalize. You are not the manager of anyone else's energetic state. You carry zero obligation to pacify their discomfort regarding your personal evolution. You are entirely exempt from the expectation to shrink your aura, bite your tongue, or dim your brilliant coherence just to make others feel less intimidated by your light. Engaging in that kind of self-betrayal is not an act of love. It is the tragic act of frequency sacrifice. And sacrificing your vibration does absolutely nothing to elevate the person you are trying to appease. It merely reinforces their internal illusion that the lower dimensional paradigm is the only valid reality. The most magnificent, loving gift you could ever offer to those around you is the unapologetic, unwavering physical demonstration that a higher plane of existence is real, that it is entirely sustainable, and that it is the true sanctuary of authentic power, immense peace, and profound joy. Your halo's activation does not just liberate you. It serves as a beacon for anyone equipped to decode its signal. There is one final, crucial layer to this interpersonal dynamic that changes the entire paradigm. The individuals furiously attempting to tether you to the old world are not your mortal enemies. They are not comic book villains intentionally plotting your demise. In the vast majority of cases, they are simply terrified human beings. Their personal fields are so hopelessly waterlogged with the collective fear and dense programming of society that they have entirely forgotten or perhaps never learned that an alternative way of living exists. Their frantic efforts to destabilize your peace are born of absolute desperation, not malice. Energetically speaking, they are akin to a drowning swimmer thrashing in the water, desperately lunging for the nearest sturdy object. With your radiant stabilizing halo, you represent that solid bedrock. Their primitive survival instinct to clutch onto you is completely understandable. But listen closely. Solid ground does not surrender its structural integrity and hurl itself into the raging ocean to save a drowning man. The bedrock remains completely immovable, and by maintaining its unshakable nature, it provides the thrashing swimmer with something genuinely stable to pull themselves up onto. This is the true definition of a frequency keeper. Your mission is not to play the rescuer. It is not to artificially fix their lives or sacrifice your hard-won coherence on the altar of their panic. Your profound duty is to remain so ferociously, immovably anchored in your sovereign power, that your mere existence stands as undeniable proof of possibility. You act precisely like that tuning fork. When a tuning fork is struck, it absolutely does not scramble around desperately chasing the other instruments, begging them to harmonize. It remains perfectly still and simply vibrates, radiating its pure, unadulterated frequency. And naturally, any instrument in the vicinity that is physically capable of resonance will automatically begin to hum in response. What has your personal experience been with this phenomenon? Have you recently observed someone whose scattered energy miraculously settled the moment they stepped into your orbit? Or conversely, have you encountered someone whose sudden visceral discomfort with your upgraded vibration served as ultimate confirmation that you are genuinely ascending? Please document that specific story in the comments. Your exact testimony might be the precise frequency of validation that another traveler needs to absorb today. Allow me to transport you to one final landscape. Deep within the oldest archives of human storytelling, there exists a powerful fable concerning light. It speaks of a rugged lighthouse keeper stationed on a treacherous, jagged coastline, notorious for its frequent and devastating tempests. The keeper, an old soul named Elias, had faithfully manned that towering beacon for more decades than the local villagers could even calculate. That unwavering light had rescued an untold number of vessels, countless sailors, completely swallowed by the blinding dark and roaring squalls, had navigated their way back to safe harbor solely because of the steady, uncompromising frequency of Elias's lamp. However, a particularly violent season of storms eventually descended upon the coast. Night after terrifying night, the oceans boiled, gale-force winds screamed, and monstrous waves battered the stone foundation of the lighthouse with such ferocity that the walls shuddered and the thick glass panes rattled. Huddled safely in their cottages, the terrified villagers watched the onslaught, whispering fears that the ancient structure would finally collapse and the light would be extinguished. Consumed by panic, a group of villagers hiked up the cliffs to confront Elias. "You must lower the flame," they pleaded frantically. "You need to dim the light. These storms are too aggressive, and your beacon is drawing their fury right to us. If you just dim the light, perhaps the storm will pass us by without targeting the tower." Elias looked down at the frightened mob with a profound, gentle certainty that instantly paralyzed their panic. He calmly replied, "My light does not summon the storm. The light is burning because the storm is already here. If I selfishly dim this flame in a foolish attempt to protect myself, I achieve no actual safety. I merely guarantee that every single ship currently drowning in those black waters has absolutely zero chance of finding their way home. In the grand narrative of your spiritual awakening, you embody both the towering lighthouse and the radiant beam of light it casts. During the most agonizing, isolating phases of your halo's activation, a part of your mind has undeniably questioned whether radiating at such a bright, coherent, and apologetically authentic frequency is truly worth the vulnerability. You have undoubtedly wondered if it would be infinitely easier to just dial it back, to shrink down, to smoothly blend back into the matrix, and to deliberately stop vibrating at a pitch that makes the sleeping world uncomfortable. But the answer, the absolute truth, that your activated halo knows, even when your physical brain is utterly exhausted, is the exact same wisdom Elias delivered. Your brilliant light does not attract the chaos of the world. Your light is necessary because the world is already engulfed in a storm. And those ships, the beautiful individuals whose fields are primed for resonance, the ones currently drowning in the dark, suffocating noise of societal fear, desperately need your specific frequency to navigate their way out. You are not meant to be their savior. You are meant to be their living proof. Your heightened vibration is never a burden. It is a profound cosmic gift, not just to yourself, but to every single soul capable of receiving its broadcast. Now, we must address a critical component of this journey that is chronically overlooked in mainstream discussions regarding frequency and energetic protection. We need to dissect exactly what occurs when dense, low vibrational experiences do not originate from toxic people, but from unavoidable life circumstances, from the sudden tragedies, abrupt losses, and seemingly random collisions of fate that crash into your timeline without warning and with zero apparent connection to your high vibrational state. It is precisely in these dark moments that your spiritual framework is subjected to its most brutal stress test. And it is right here where the most vital wisdom resides. Prepare yourself for the truth that realigns everything. A high-frequency energy field, a fully ignited, quantum halo does not grant you immunity from human suffering. It does not seal you inside a sterile, impenetrable bubble where hardship is magically deflected. Achieving a state of profound coherence does not mean that grief cannot reach you, that sudden challenges will not materialize, or that you get a free pass to bypass the full, messy spectrum of the human experience. Any spiritual teacher who peddles the fantasy that a high vibe prevents all tragedy is selling you a dangerous, toxic brand of spiritual bypassing. Believing that lie will ultimately render you incredibly fragile, not resilient. Because when the inevitable storm hits, as it eventually does for every single human being on this planet, regardless of how pure their frequency is, you will have absolutely no psychological framework to process the blow. You will lack the tools to integrate the pain. The violent dissonance between the perfect life you were promised and the agony you are experiencing will completely shatter the very coherence you worked so tirelessly to build. The actual truth is far more nuanced, incredibly grounded, and infinitely more powerful than the hollow promise of a life devoid of struggle. The reality is this: your halo is not designed to stop difficult, heartbreaking experiences from entering your timeline. Its true purpose is to fundamentally revolutionize your relationship to those experiences when they inevitably arrive. The alchemy of experience. The dynamic you hold with any given event dictates absolutely everything about its final impact on your life. It is the razor-thin boundary between a tragedy that permanently shatters your spirit and a crucible that fortifies your soul. It marks the vital distinction between a trauma that degrades your energetic baseline forever and a profound challenge that, once properly metabolized, actually catapults your vibration to unprecedented heights. It is the literal difference between being devoured by the chaos and being beautifully refined by it. When your quantum halo is fully ignited and your energetic architecture hums with coherence, you confront adversity from an entirely revolutionized vantage point. You face the darkness as an entity who possesses absolute, cellular certainty of their own identity, and a soul anchored in that profound self-knowledge simply cannot be misplaced during a collision with hardship. You continuously operate as the sovereign observer. This does not mean you are numb, detached, or coldly suppressing your humanity. Rather, you are a fiercely present, deeply feeling witness who wades directly into the agonizing experience without ever allowing it to define your core identity. You allow yourself to be emotionally moved by the tragedy without being swept away by its undertow. You willingly carry the crushing gravity of the obstacle, but you fiercely refuse to accept that this temporary burden is the ultimate, final truth of your existence, redefining what it means to be untouchable. This is the absolute, most profound definition of becoming untouchable. It does not mean that the cruelties of the world never graze your skin. It means that absolutely nothing has the power to hijack your soul. It isn't that heavy energies never land on your doorstep. It is that they are vehemently denied permission to permanently colonize your energetic territory. You allow yourself to feel the pain. You actively process the grief. You intelligently integrate the lesson, and then you instinctively snap back to your sovereign frequency over and over and over again. You achieve this not because you are stubbornly faking resilience, but because your activated halo possesses an immense, natural gravitational pull. Its drive towards structural coherence is infinitely more powerful than the suction of any external catastrophe. Take a second to tune into your somatic response as you absorb these words. Recognize the massive psychological gap between chasing the childish fantasy of a completely frictionless life versus embodying the supreme power of a life where no amount of friction can ever steal you away from yourself. One path is a fragile, heartbreaking illusion. The other is absolute, unyielding power. And you were guided to this transmission specifically to claim that power, an energetic protocol for the storm. Let me equip you with another critical protocol. This tool is specifically designed for those grueling moments when a crisis hits hard. Your halo feels severely breached, and the chaotic static of the matrix has successfully infiltrated your mind. When you feel your vibrational baseline plummeting and you are desperately searching for the way back up, utilize this. Again, this is not a symbolic gesture. It is a mechanical, energetic realignment. Speak this truth audibly if your environment permits, or forcefully project it within the silent theater of your mind. I am not the event that is currently happening to me. I am the vast field in which this event is taking place. Repeat it with unwavering conviction. I am not the event that is currently happening to me. I am the vast field in which this event is taking place. Pay close attention to the physiological shifts this declaration triggers inside your vessel. Observe the subtle but monumental realignment of your relationship to the present crisis. Understand that this mantra is absolutely not an exercise in denial or toxic positivity. You are not pretending the pain doesn't exist. You are simply repositioning your ultimate identity in relation to it. The sky and the hurricane. You are not the raging hurricane. You are the infinite, expansive sky in which that hurricane temporarily spins. And the sky, regardless of how violently the winds howl or how viciously the thunder cracks, always remains the sky. Its vastness is never shrunk by the passing weather fronts. It is never permanently stained by the dark clouds, nor is its structural integrity compromised by the lightning strikes. At its fundamental core, the sky remains boundless, eternal, and perfectly clear. That infinite expanse is exactly what you are. That is the precious territory your quantum halo is designed to protect. It is not trying to micromanage the external circumstances of your daily life. It is fiercely guarding the sacred sky of your consciousness. The moment you remember this truth and intentionally shift back into that macro perspective, even while the hurricane is actively tearing through your reality, your halo immediately reboots. Coherence rushes back in. It might not happen instantaneously, and it may not be flawlessly smooth, but it is an undeniable, mechanical return. You snap back into alignment, just like a struck tuning fork inevitably settles back into its pure, native pitch once the chaotic interference fades away, anchoring your reality. I urge you to physically type this exact declaration into the comment section right now. I am the field, not the frequency of what finds me. By typing those words, you are doing far more than casually engaging with internet content. You are driving a metaphysical anchor directly into your personal matrix. You are issuing a sovereign decree to your own deep consciousness, verifying that you have absorbed this wisdom and actively chosen to embody it. Intentional, spoken, or written declarations are among the most potent frequency-calibrating instruments at your disposal. Your words are never merely empty sounds or digital text. They are literal, reality-shaping vibrations. And your personal energy field is constantly, obsessively listening to every single narrative you weave about yourself, crossing the frequency threshold. Now, we must transition to the ultimate layer of this transmission. This is the capstone that fuses everything we have discussed into a unified understanding of exactly what is transpiring within you right now, and what monumental phase comes next. You are currently standing upon a critical threshold. I do not mean this in some poetic, abstract sense. I am referring to a literal, quantifiable frequency threshold. Once you step across this specific boundary, it triggers a permanent, irreversible upgrade in the operational capacities of your energetic field. And make no mistake, you are actively crossing that boundary in this very moment. You are not crossing it because you have executed every spiritual practice with flawless perfection, nor because you have attained some mythical, impossible zenith of enlightenment. You are crossing it simply because your energetic field has finally amassed a critical mass of coherence. Through all your years of relentless seeking, through every agonizing purge, through every conscious choice, and through every single time you stubbornly clawed your way back to your baseline, you have generated enough internal stability to sustain the massive activation that is currently unfolding. But there is a hidden secret about thresholds that almost no one ever talks about. Here is the hidden secret about thresholds that almost no one ever talks about. They rarely feel like a triumphant, joyous arrival. Instead, they feel agonizingly like the final, brutal stretch of an exhausting marathon. This is the exact phase where your fatigue peaks, where your uncertainty is the thickest, and where you are most violently tempted to question whether the destination even exists at all. The threshold is the ultimate battleground. It is the precise location where your obsolete, low-density frequency makes its absolute best, final pitch for why you should turn around and stay firmly planted in the familiar mud. It is here that the predictable, known misery of the old paradigm suddenly masquerades as comforting when compared to the vast, intimidating unknown of your elevated state. The internal critic screams at maximum volume. This is too intense. You aren't equipped for this. Who do you think you are? So, what is the protocol when you stand at this threshold? You put one foot in front of the other, and you keep walking. You do not press forward because you are overflowing with unwavering confidence, or because you feel perfectly prepared. You don't proceed because the voice of fear has magically gone silent. You keep moving because, deep within the architecture of your quantum field, you understand that this terrified voice is absolutely not the truth of who you are. It is merely the desperate, expiring echo of an old frequency fighting for its life, right before your expanding coherence completely evicts it. As you stubbornly keep walking, the boundary is breached. The crossing is almost never marked by cinematic fireworks or sudden, explosive flashes of divine enlightenment. Rather, it manifests as a quiet, undeniable, bone-deep realization that you have finally made it to the other side. You sense a profound structural shift within. The internal broadcast is suddenly pristine. The external static has faded to a distant whisper. Your halo has locked into place. You are standing precisely on that threshold at this exact second. This transmission locked onto your coordinates specifically because your energetic signature registered a perfect match. It found you because you have put in the grueling work. You have released enough density, made enough conscious choices, and clawed your way back to your sovereign center enough times that this activation is no longer some distant, future milestone. It is your living, breathing, present reality. The upgrade is actively installing as you process these very sentences. It is anchoring into your matrix through the silent pauses between the words. It is happening in those microscopic moments when a concept lands in your field and your cells vibrate with the undeniable recognition of a truth your soul already possessed. Your halo isn't on its way. It is already here. It is fully online. And the state it is activating you into is fundamentally immune to the chaos of the 3D world. You achieve this immunity not by retreating to a mountain cave and abandoning society, but by possessing an unshakable knowing of what you are while standing directly in the center of the madness. Your energetic vibration is no longer a passive reaction dictated by external circumstances. It is a sovereign force that you actively generate, carry, and deliberately return to. And with every single return, it solidifies, growing infinitely more potent and unmistakably yours. Here is the ultimate truth that reshapes everything. The planet does not need you to frantically fix it. The universe is not asking you to solve all its problems, rescue the unwilling, or forcefully martyr your precious frequency on the altar of global suffering. In this unprecedented era of planetary reorganization and intense perturbation, what the collective human consciousness desperately requires is exactly the sovereign being you are transforming into. The grid needs individuals who have successfully navigated the threshold. It needs activated halos walking boldly through the chaos just as Seraphel navigated the corrupted city, utterly present, deeply empathetic, yet completely, irreversibly grounded in their own true nature. Every single time you prioritize your pure frequency over the world's static, you are doing far more than just shielding yourself. You are actively injecting a desperately needed signal of coherence into a global matrix that is starving for it. Whenever you dust yourself off and consciously return to your halo after a violent storm, you are providing empirical data to the quantum field that high-level stability is fully attainable. Each time you refuse to dim your light under intense societal pressure, you become Elias, faithfully manning the lighthouse. And rest assured, those lost ships navigating the darkness, the souls who desperately need your broadcast to find their way home, are absolutely finding it. Even if you cannot physically see them, even if you have no way to measure or quantify your impact, the energetic grid is responding. The resonance is connecting. Your transmission is being received. Do not underestimate the magnitude of this. This is not trivial work. This is the great work, and you are executing it not with flawless perfection, and certainly not without grueling struggle, but with a relentless consistency and a profound depth of intention that has successfully propelled your field across the finish line. It has ignited your halo and made the reception of this very message possible. So, this is where our journey concludes and the true integration begins. This is the core principle you must carry forward into the messy reality of your daily existence. Your frequency is your ultimate protection, but it does not function as a thick, heavy wall designed to hide you from the world. It operates as a master coherence that ensures you remain unmistakably yourself while fully engaging with the world. Your quantum halo is not a defense mechanism or a suit of armor. It is your purest identity. It is the living, pulsating, electromagnetic manifestation of your highest self, revealed only when the static is burned away and the true signal rings clear. The more intimately you know this core essence, the more frequently you choose it, and the faster you return to it during the mundane, seemingly insignificant trials of ordinary life, the more impenetrable your halo becomes. Your field achieves supreme coherence. Your frequency becomes truly untouchable. This is not a final destination. It is a lifelong, magnificent practice, and this magnificent practice remains incredibly straightforward, even during the moments when it feels overwhelmingly difficult. With every single choice you make, with every breath that enters your lungs, and in every passing second, you must pause and ask yourself a singular question. Is this my authentic frequency, or is this simply the matrix of noise? Once you identify the difference, deliberately choose your own frequency. You do not have to execute this flawlessly every single time, nor will you always catch it immediately, but you must approach it with the profound, enduring, and unshakable dedication of a sovereign soul who finally remembers exactly who they are and absolutely refuses to ever shrink back into being anything less. You are profoundly ready for this exact moment. In truth, your soul has been prepared for this since the beginning. You have officially stepped across the threshold. Your quantum halo is fully illuminated and active. The magnificent being you are transforming into the essence you are already actively embodying is a force that the chaotic vibrations of this world literally cannot pierce. You are not physically escaping the 3D realm. Rather, you are finally, irrevocably, and unapologetically stepping into your truest self while standing right in the middle of it. If the resonance of this transmission has successfully anchored into your personal energy field, I highly encourage you to return to these words. Revisit this space during your quiet moments of stillness, right before you drift into sleep, deep within your meditation practice, or during any turbulent hour when the deafening static of the world begins to close in and you desperately need a beacon to relocate your true signal. Furthermore, if you know someone currently navigating the brutal trenches of their own spiritual activation, that terrifying, disorienting phase where the external chaos amplifies right before the profound inner silence takes over, please share this transmission with them. When you forward this message to a soul whose field is primed for reception, you are doing far more than just sharing a piece of digital media. You are actively triggering a sacred remembrance within their DNA. You are directly injecting a pure, coherent signal into their aura at the exact second they might be praying for a lifeline. That intentional act of sharing generates a massive ripple of quantum coherence, fortifying both of your fields and expanding the light for every single being connected to this grid. If this broadcast has genuinely landed within your spirit, if any part of the wisdom shared here has sparked a visceral recognition, a deep remembrance, or a potent vibrational match that you wish to permanently lock in, I invite you to do this. Go to the comments section and leave one single word that captures exactly what you physically felt inside your energy field while experiencing this transmission. Do not write what your analytical mind thought. Share the exact word that describes what your soul felt. Your energetic field knows the truth, and that specific word acts as your unique vibrational signature. When your individual signal is woven together with the signals of every other awakened soul who has absorbed this message, it constructs a massive, unified field of coherence right here in this digital space. This collective grid will exponentially amplify the activation process for every single traveler who discovers this sanctuary after you. Your comment transcends basic algorithm engagement. It is a vital, living contribution to our collective ascension. It is your personal frequency added to a matrix that grows infinitely stronger with every person who steps across this threshold. I invite you to subscribe to this channel if you desire to remain anchored in this specific frequency. Do this not because you need an external authority to dictate your beliefs, but because this profound inner alchemy is a continuous journey. The monumental activation that took place today is merely the prologue. The transmissions that are currently preparing to come forth will guide you exponentially deeper into the truths you have just begun to remember. We will explore the dormant layers of your quantum halo that are still waiting to ignite, and we will unravel the boundless mysteries of your personal frequency that are continuing to blossom. This unified field is here. It is expanding rapidly, and you are officially an integral part of its architecture. You belong here not because you simply clicked a button, but because your soul's vibration demanded a match. Your authentic frequency is your ultimate, impenetrable shield. Your quantum halo is blazing and fully online. In this very breath, amidst the beautiful, messy unfolding of your entirely irreplaceable human journey, you are actively becoming completely untouchable. Welcome to the unified field. The halo activates now.